Joining us now is Vega. She is the Republican candidate in Virginia's 7th Congressional District, and she joins us now. You're going up against Abigail Spanberger, and Latino voters in that district, as they are throughout much of Northern Virginia, are going to be a big factor here. I'm in the 11th Congressional District. There's a large Hispanic population there in places like Herndon, Reston as well. And I'm wondering, as we look toward November the 8th, how is the economy, how is inflation changing the way that Latinos and Latinas are thinking about who they'll vote for?
Look, the Hispanic community is not monolithic. The Hispanic community cares about a variety of issues, and certainly crime is at the forefront of the discussions that we're having with voters in the 7th District. And the reminder is that, crime is through the roof. People don't feel safe in their own communities because of failed Democrat policies and failed Democrat leadership, which is exactly what my opponent has brought to the 7th District.
What about economic issues, though? What about inflation, putting food on the table, gasoline in your tank?
Absolutely. We're talking about those issues as well. Those are issues that Hispanic voters care about. They work hard for their money. They want more of that money in their pocket, and they want this wasteful spending to stop. And that's exactly what they've been seeing coming out of Washington over the last couple of years. So folks are starting to, figure things out and making those tough decisions, whether they put gas in their vehicle or they take another trip to their grocery store.
There's a sense in places like Texas, where we saw Myra Flores win in a seat that hadn't gone Republican for 100 years, that for too long Democrats have taken Latino voters for granted, much the same way as many people believe they've taken African-American voters for granted. Here in the state of Virginia, or at least across the river in the state of Virginia, do you believe that's the case?
Oh, absolutely.
That Latino voters were just kind of like, oh, they'll vote Democratic, don't worry.
Absolutely. They feel entitled to the Hispanic vote. And this cycle, we're starting to see a shift. I know that the Democrat Party sees it, and there's nothing they can do to stop it, because Hispanic voters are realizing that, again, we're in the condition that we're in because of failed Democrat policies, and they want change. And in 6 days, we're going to give them that change.
You were out there campaigning the other day with Governor Glenn Youngkin, and you do seem to be taking a page out of his playbook, and that is that he was endorsed by President Donald Trump, but didn't make too big a deal about it in the campaign. You were recently endorsed by former President Trump as well, yet you're not making too big a deal of it.
Well, look, President Trump, joins the hundreds of thousands of 7th District voters that have endorsed my campaign. And so when it comes to the race that I'm running, I'm laser focused on continuing to get support from the voters in the 7th District, because that's the most important endorsement for me as we look into November 8th.
I want to ask you about crime, because you mentioned it as being a big issue in the 7th District. It's a big issue across so many places in this country. You and your family were personally touched by crime. It was gang violence. A friend of yours was killed. Your brother was severely wounded. You became a police officer as a result in Arlington. When you hear people like Governor Kathy Hochul say Republicans are master manipulators, fact deniers when it comes to crime, that they are making this up, what do you say?
I find it appalling. We're not making anything up. Again, this is a direct result of the Democrats' defund the police movement, and law-abiding citizens are now having to pay the price. You see it on TV every single day, how crime is impacting our youth, our children, and just across the board. And voters have had enough. They expect for their elected representatives to stand up and to provide safety and security, and that's not what the Democrat has provided. And so we're talking about that issue with voters in the 7th District as well.
I also want to ask you about immigration and what we're seeing, the images on the border every day. You were the daughter of Salvadoran immigrants. Your parents were escaping the Civil War there. You were born in Texas. When you look at what's happening on the border, almost 2.4 million people crossing the border illegally in fiscal year 22. And the stories that our Bill Malugin brings us every day of hundreds of people crossing the border illegally. What's your position on all of this?
Look, it's a humanitarian crisis caused by Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Abigail Spanberger. You have a Democrat Party that talks about caring about women and children, but they turn a blind eye to the crisis at the southern border where cartels are having their way. Fentanyl is coming through the border, destroying our families, killing our youth. People have had enough, and they realize that we need change, and that's why we're seeing such a shift.
So what should the country do about it?
We're a nation of laws. We have to enforce the laws that we have on the books. We have to secure the border. We have to turn off the magnets, and we have to empower the brave men and women down at the border to do their job. They've taken an oath to serve and to protect, and this administration is failing them, and they're failing the American people.
It's going to be an interesting race, Virginia's 7th Congressional District. We should point out that we asked your opponent, Abigail Spanberger, to come on. So far, we have not heard anything back.
I'm not surprised.
All right. We'll be watching your race closely a week from yesterday.
Thank you very much.
Vega, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.